America.
Only in America.
Only in America.
Only in America.
Only America.
Only in America.
Our virtual road trip around Utah continues this week. We'll listen in as we speak to an author and professor at the University of Utah. We're going to learn about the unique history and future of Latino communities in the Beehive State. From the National Immigration Forum, I'm Ali Mirani, and this is Only in America.
But I think this sense of identity and belonging is increasing, and it's interesting that it's increasing, especially in the new generation of the children of the unauthorized workers. Because again, these children are reclaiming the rights for the parents. And they only do that because they feel that they belong.
Dr. Armando Solórzano joins us this week, and once again, our Utah guests have a lot to teach us. During our conversation, we touch on the growing Latino population in Utah and what that means for the next generation of Utahns. For example, like Bernardo, our guest on last week's episode. Here's a fun fact for you. Utah's Hispanic population grew nearly 26% between 2010 and 2018, which was more than twice as fast as the non-Hispanic white population in the state. And 22% of all Utahns are now non-white. That's 1 in every 5. And it's even higher among children under 18, at almost 27%. Dr. Solorzano and I also talked about Utah's land and how under the Biden administration, the historical importance of parks and monuments may take on added significance. Dr. Solorzano, thank you so much for joining. I really, really appreciate the time and the opportunity to chat with you. So thank you.
You are very welcome, and thank you for opening the space for the population of Utah that we are trying so hard to get into the national image, into the national scope. Thank you.
I have to say, I've been to Utah a handful of times, and it's just really become one of my favorite states and favorite communities. So this is just a great opportunity to learn more. So tell me, how did you make your way to Utah?
Well, we came at the time, I'm talking about 35 years ago, when the university was engaging into the issues of diversity, plurality, inclusivity, and putting the University of Utah at the national level in conversation with other universities and getting really into this conversation post-civil rights movement and the issue of bringing academians of color into the university. And also, like in your case, I was always been very attracted by the state of Utah. Since I was 3 years old, I learned in my home country that Utah was part of Mexican territory. I knew that. And so, as descendant from indigenous groups in Mexico and the great admiration we have for motherland, I wanna know, and I wanna live in this part of the native people that heavily identify with Mexico. So that was one attraction. But the other one was, again, to sort of start a conversation that the history of the state of Utah doesn't start in 1847 with the arrival of the immigrants, of the LDS immigrants, or the Mormon immigrants that we used to call them. That is a very rich history in here. So all those reasons brought me to this state, which again to me is like coming back to my homeland.
What was Utah like, when you arrived 30 years ago?
Obviously very different. One of the first stereotypes I had to run against is that it was a polygamous state, which again, at that time it was so prevalent. And mainly the state of Utah was identified and known by this overwhelming wrong identification of being a polygamous state. I had to face the lack of diversity in the state. At that time, only 60,000 Latinos live in the state. Of course, the statistics were very different at that time because given the religious background of the state, classifications are made differently. So again, I didn't know exactly what the population looked like, but certainly they claimed there was not an African Black population in the state, which it was not accurate. The same thing they claimed that there was not a representative indigenous population when I know that we had 5 reservations in the state. So it was interesting, discouraging, because I have to fight with this psychological mechanism that is called cognitive dissonance, mainly that what you see outside doesn't coincide with what you know. So I had to struggle with that. I had also to face the reality that the population of color was segregated. There was not much representation in institutions of higher education. There were not many administrators of scholars. And it was at that time, I believe, the population in the state was 88% LDS. So it was the highest representation of any single denomination in one state. So those are the circumstances I found. And then I came from the University of Wisconsin when I was used to a very different type of student population. Uh, it was driven by this issue of understanding, knowing, knowledge. Uh, and I had, again, to face the reality that we were pioneering that sense, introducing new curriculum, new minority groups in the state, and starting the research for underrepresented populations in the state.
So then, as you started that research, what surprised you as you started to do the research of the history of Mexican Americans in Utah? What are the things that just jumped out and you just were not expecting?
Well, first of all, I was very surprised that Mexican American Latinos, they already had a very big presence and a big history in the state. What they did not have was somebody who can write the history. So that was, to me, was challenging, but most challenging was that even inside the small Mexican American, Latinos, or like we call them in Utah, Spanish speaking people, uh, even they deny our history. To me, I have learned a new term at that time. It was called internalized oppression. That even the same groups they deny the present, and it happened. I mean, like all findings and great discoveries just happened by accident. I was interviewing a very old person. I think she was 95 years old in southern Utah, and I asked, can you tell me about your history in Utah? And she said, I don't have any history. I only have photos. Huh. And I said, can I see the photos? Well, she has amazing photos. Now, Mexican American Hispanics working in the mines, building the railroad, creating the first religious organizations in any denomination, either LDS, Mormons, or Catholics, or other denominations. So I said, well, can I see the pictures? But the pictures were destroyed, and she said, don't worry, I'm gonna put it together with tape. So obviously we were destroying the pictures at the same time. And the fact that whatever I knew, it didn't coincide with what I was seeing.
Do you feel like the Latino community in Utah today feels like they belong in Utah?
They do. At this particular time, the LDS Latinos, the Mormon Latinos, they, for instance, when you talk about immigration, they don't understand what you're talking about as immigrants, because given our past, they are telling you we are not immigrating, we are returning to a sacred land. meaning now with the Mormon people, right? And they made amazing comparisons. We are coming back to our land because as Catholics want to live close to the Vatican and be close to the Pope, as the Muslims want to be close to the religious temples, right? So we Latino Mormons are coming to Utah. We are returning to our sacred land. So again, you see, some of them, they do belong. But I think this sense of identity and belonging is increasing. And it's interesting that it's increasing, especially in the new generation of the children of the unauthorized workers. Because again, these children are reclaiming the rights for the parents. And they only do that because they feel that they belong. They grow up here, they study here, they offer the best to the state, they have a commitment to the state. So they say, this is ours too. But again, they are in this particular situation, they are doing it for their parents, right? Because the parents are the one who they are trying to protect. After all, those kids were born here. Some of them were born here. Yeah, there is a very strong sense of identity, belonging, and be part of the whole state. And that is increasing also with the efforts of the indigenous groups, like the youths and the Hoshoots and the Navajos, that we are trying to look at the time when we were together, right? And so that is open up the lines of communication with all these reservations. And the questions that the Native American people raise are very pertinent and inclusive. Like you start the conversation by them asking, are you a brother? Are you an Aztec? Right? And of course, that by itself open up the doors of the reservations, right? So it's this sense of inclusivity that, again, is not easy, but I think with education, with an open mind, with the understanding of what is religion and what is spirituality, I think we are getting there. We are getting there.
At what point do you think the identity, that the way I understand what you're saying, that is forged, the common identity that's forged based on religion, on spirituality, on the land, at what point or how does that begin to change the politics of Utah? Because Utah is still seen from a national perspective as a very politically conservative state.
Yeah, it opened up a new type of dialogue with other political parties. You see how religion is continually brought into the political negotiation, right? To the point, like, again, a large number of undocumented workers in Utah were Mormons, but so they were Catholics, and both of them were immigrants, right? So the two religions, or three religions, if you want to consider a Protestant people also, the three religions come together and say, well, we have to deal with this. If we are very tough in obeying the law, like the Mormon people say, right? We are going to end up with our workers. So how we can, through all religions, organize some kind of political organizations, or the march that we had in
2006.
2006,
Yeah.
the largest in the state.
So in other parts of the country, you see religion being increasingly politicized. So that, for some people, their religion is their politics and their politics is their religion, both on the right and the left. How in Utah can that be avoided when it comes to something like immigration, or can it be?
The LDS Church doesn't like to have public pronouncement about immigration because they are caught in this dilemma, in this contradiction of being very law-abiding people, because historically that's how they have created their political image in the nation, because the persecution they suffer, right? So they have to have this strong religious figure or abiding by the law, by the Constitution. But at the same time, they have to face the reality of the state, that the majority of non-authorized workers belongs to different religious denomination, right? So they don't take a public stand. They support other religious organization. And if it's the issue of immigration, the Catholic Church take that risk. Because the Catholic Church by itself is an immigrant church, right? I mean, they don't hide that since, the Old Testament. So they take that issue of immigration, come to that, and come and defend the rights of the undocumented workers. But again, we are talking what we call the intersectionality, not only about religion, politics, but now you bring economics.
So let's say we're having this conversation in 20, 30 years. How did you see Utah being different in 20 or 30 years, or how do you see it being the same?
No. It's certainly going to be very, very different. Again, one factor, again, going back to religion, that we need to take in consideration is that by the year 2035, the majority of Mormons in the world are going to be Latinos. I think we are expecting 56, 57% of all Mormons in the world are going to be Latinos. Of course, that is going to be reflected in Utah in what we already call the Latinization of the LDS church. So the church has to change drastically. And in many ways, probably in ways where they don't want to go. Even the way we understand the geography of the state is going to change. I'll give you an example. In 3-4 years, we're going to celebrate the 200, I don't know, 50th anniversary of the Dominguez and Escalante. Well, we know right now that we're going to reconstruct all those places. Because in the past, we lost the names that Dominguez and Escalante and the expedition put to the places in Utah. They changed it, right? Places like the place of Sagrado Corazon, Sacred Heart, they call it Manti. Of course, right? It doesn't. But I think even the recognition of the geography has to change. I'm engaged now in 2 projects with national parks. Again, it's going to be happen what is happening in LA now, with being the second largest city with Mexicans. So probably Salt Lake City will be the city with the largest Latino Mormon population.
It will become a very international city in the next 20 years.
Absolutely. And I think we are prepared that the signs are already there. Utah is one of the most important gates of entry for immigration, something that we never consider. And in fact, Georgetown University was here several years ago trying to understand, how do you do it? Well, officially also, we are the port of entry of refugees in the nation, one of the 5, I believe. So from here, all the refugees go to different states. But I mean, all the signs are there. And as I mentioned before, is that it's not that we don't have a history, is that there is nobody who writes it with an approach that is more inclusive and egalitarian.
Well, I got to say, thank you very much for writing that history. It's been so interesting to speak with you, to listen to you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
But I do have one last question for you. The name of the podcast is Only in America. And the question I ask everybody we talk to is just to finish this sentence. Only in America, ...
Oh, I have to think about that because it's because the word America
Exactly.
is problematic to
Right.
us. Again, we recognize we don't. Again, we just finished reading a book that sometimes there are some things in the culture or in the group that we don't share. But for us, I mean, that's what, again, I'm sorry, I know that you can edit this, and that is okay. That's what I pause.
You can change the question to only in Utah. How about that?
Only in Utah, we can reclaim our identity as mestizo people, as descendant of the Europeans and the native people of this land. We can gain our mestizaje by bringing together people of different religious denomination, and only in Utah we can claim our mission in this country, and that is that in order to liberate ourselves, we need to liberate those who has oppressed us. And by liberating all of us, our motherland will be happy to see all the children grow up in unity, in recognition, and in mutual protection of the land.
Thank you so much, Dr. Solorzano. I really, really appreciate this.
Thank you. I appreciated the opportunity.
Dr. Armando Solórzano is an author and associate professor at the University of Utah and has been teaching at the U for 30 years. You can learn more about Dr. Solórzano at our website, immigrationforum.org/podcast. Look, if you like what you hear, subscribe to Only in America, wherever you are listening to this episode. Only in America is produced and edited by Katie Lutz, Joanna Taylor, and Becca Wall. Our artwork and graphics are designed by Carla Leja. Me, I'm Ali Nurani, and I will talk to you next week.
Only in America.
Only in America.
Only in America.
Only in America.
Only America.
Only in America.
Support for the National Immigration Forum comes from the Carnegie Corporation of New York, supporting innovations in education, democratic engagement, and strengthening international peace and security. And from Humanity United. When humanity is united, we can bring a powerful force for human dignity.